zip straight along. Would you please welcome, with a piece on marketing, the missing piece in the Scope 3 puzzle, the co-founders of Sustainable Marketing Compass. Would you please give it up with a warm welcome for Paul Randle and Alexis Eyre.
Wow.
Gosh. Can you hear me? Is that? Oh, yeah, you can. Thank you very much, Stuart, for that amazing intro. I've never had someone welcome us in like that before, so I feel very chuffed. Anyway, thank you very much to you all for being here today. I've got a lot to say in 20 minutes, but we are really actively trying to give 10 minutes at the end for questions, because hopefully we will spark enough thought that you'll actually have things that you want to ask. So we'll try and move through this. To give a bit of context behind who we are, Paul and I met a while ago. We're sort of, we have half a century's worth of marketing experience, but actually understand quite a lot about the sustainability world, and we kind of sit in this intersection between marketing and sustainability, and we're actually probably a very small handful of marketers who actually do sit in that kind of space. And actually, when we were thinking about how we could best portray ourselves, Elvis Presley's Suspicious Minds is probably one of the best songs. We're looked at highly suspiciously by the sustainability community, but we're also looked at highly suspiciously by the marketing community. Yes, so what we're trying to do is to bring the suspiciousness down and actually get both groups onto the same page. Should we do? It works. Amazing. We are the co-founders of the Sustainable Marketing Compass. We did ages of 2 or 3 years of research into marketing's impact and how it's actually predominantly working against the sustainability movement at the moment. And this framework was the sort of result of all of it. It basically teaches marketing how to embed sustainability into every single aspect of their marketing, from branding and strategy through to tactics, governance and performance metrics. It's open source. We believe that everyone should have access to it, because the faster we can get this moving, the faster marketing can come on board and help with the transition. It's been used by a variety of brands and actually is now appearing in a lot of the education courses. The Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership is actually where Paul tutors and I assess on their Sustainable Marketing and Media and Creative course, which is really exciting to actually see the level that it's actually starting to appear in. No. Oh, there we are. And the exciting thing about it was that on the day that we launched the framework, it was seen by 750,000 people in the first 24 hours it went live. It went absolutely mental. We were not prepared for it at all. And I've never spent an entire day on LinkedIn before just trying to keep up with the amount of messages we got through, which was just amazing. But the one thing that really came out about it was that people wanted to understand the level of detail that we'd gone into over those 2 years, the stuff that we'd found out and everything else. And so we wrote 90,000 words about it, just to really bring it to life. So that's where we stand in terms of both of us. Oh no, God, sorry guys.
You have to press down, I think.
Oh, I don't know if it's, okay, right.
Yeah, that's me. Cool. Right, welcome. Everybody, thank you for coming along and not going to Ed Miliband. We really appreciate that. So we're talking today about marketing and Scope 3 in particular. And what we've seen from the show, which there's good and bad elements in the show, is that there's progress. Things are moving forward. We've got legislation driving us. We've got corporates, more and more of them getting on the bandwagon and moving forward. And all those organisations, in some shape or form, bring marketing along with them. And that's good news, right? Because the UN and the IPCC for years have been asking for the marketing community to play a role in our sustainable transition. Excuse me, I've suddenly got a frog in my throat. So right back in the early 1990s, the UN started asking for marketing to help support sustainable lifestyles. So with such a huge body, with such a weight of momentum behind this transition to a sustainable lifestyle, you'd like to think that the marketing industry took the mettle, actually took the challenge and ran with it. Oh, there we go, my big reveal didn't work. Not quite. So Maddie Cooper is a dear friend of ours and a bunch in the audience as well. we were talking about one particular company at one point in time that I'm not going to mention, but actually her sentiment here really encapsulates largely what marketing's response has been to the sustainability challenge. Now, yes, there are pockets of absolute excellence going on, and that was what Alexis and I found when we did our research into the compass and into the book. But when you look at the industry as a whole, its response to the environmental and sustainability challenges that we actually face has been woeful. This image here is from the California wildfires and just kind of pinpoints that whole point. While the rest of the planet is moving along a trajectory that is not sustainable, marketing is accelerating us towards that or acting as a brake on that transition. And that was our huge insight. That's our mission, and the community that sits around the compass and everything is actually to transform marketing into a force for good rather than an anchor or accelerator towards doom. So, going forward. So that's where we kind of are today. I'm really not very good. Where am I pointing this over here? So it begs the question, where actually is marketing then in the sustainability agenda? There is some nominal stuff, as I said, from the IPCC in the 2022 report, that whole chapter on demand-side mitigation, where it highlighted 60 behaviours that it asked for the marketing industry to help promote. But actually, when you look at like the GHG protocols and stuff like that, can anybody point out where marketing is in there? It's kind of absent. And actually, you could kind of argue that marketing's absent from the whole community. And our book explores why that is. We're not going to go into that today. But actually, marketing has a whole bunch of Scope 3 impacts, both upstream and downstream. And we'll get into more detail on that later. But, upstream, you're going to cover a lot of that within your operations and things of that sort of nature. Yes, one person pointed out to me the other day that marketeers talk a lot. So maybe we have a similar carbon output to like cows. And actually, the Direct Marketing Association actually highlighted in 2022 that marketeers use 170 KPIs to help them keep their jobs. And then about 5 to actually prove that what they're doing is working. So actually, we're very good at talking, but actually, we do a lot of things that actually require the supply chain to come into action. We talk a lot in the office, but then we engage agencies to do all our work for us. And bringing that alert into your Scope 3 is absolutely essential. To give you some examples, in my old days, before I saw the light, I actually chartered a Boeing 747 to fly journalists to Las Vegas. I even hired a satellite on my credit card for a product launch. Now, the satellite was already in space, so I'm not going to take account for the rocket fuel to get it up there, but marketing's behaviours can be more impactful than you actually think. And we're going to dive into that a little bit today. But what I want to explore is, where are we today? What behaviours is the marketing community demonstrating today, and what behaviours is the sustainability community doing today that also makes this current situation a little bit complex and not too good. So let's think about what's been happening up until this point or two when it comes to marketing, talking about sustainability. So how did we approach that? Well, first of all, we had a whole bunch of marketeers that knew nothing about sustainability, and we gave them the task about promoting it. Those individuals all come with a growth mindset. I need to grow, I need to grow, I need to drive profit for my organisation. So what we'll do is, we'll get a new product, that's our sustainable product, and we'll add that as an incremental revenue line to everything else that we already do. So it's more money. And because everybody was talking about the sustainable pound, that gives us legitimacy to premium price that. And we'll just make up that actually it costs us a bit more to do these products in the first place. And some places it does, but not in all of them. What were the results of that? The epidemic of greenwashing that we're seeing everywhere. Nobody bought any sustainable goods, and then people said, oh, the sustainable pound doesn't exist. It's like, really? When we're charging extra for it? Is that true? Brand harm, because we were not selling things and because we were lying in our communications, and all the green activists started realizing that and lobbying against us quite correctly, and we support it. From the poor end user point of view, and not just consumers, in the B2B space as well, The soup of claims and eco-label and everything has just engendered complete and utter confusion. Nobody has a clue. Legislation comes slamming in to try and put some control over this. 92% of the CMOs globally want to talk about sustainability, but are scared shitless to do it. So we're promptly in a place where it's all gone quiet, and that's bad because it suddenly takes sustainability off the agenda. So not good from a marketing point of view. Doesn't mean to say, oh, hold on, oh, the wrong way, sorry. Doesn't mean to say that the sustainability community was really any much better in that, I'm afraid to say. Back to this bit about us being in both camps. So what did the sustainability community do in this role? Well, first of all, they approached marketing with no knowledge. They thought marketing was communications, the colouring in, the pretty bit at the end, you know, the thing you put on the website, the messaging. Didn't understand the full complexity of the marketing industry. And those marketeers, they're evil bastards, aren't they? All they do is sell shit that we don't need. Why would we go and talk to them? You know, they do nasty things like bring really damaging, polluting organisations into conferences. You know, we do that sort of stuff. We do use PR to hide that as well. But actually, the majority of marketeers are not really that evil. They're actually quite nice people. What that meant was that when it actually came to figuring out where marketing played its role, we didn't appear in scopes. When we brought out our new sustainable initiatives within the organisation, there was no proper consideration going into acknowledging just how hard it is to shift these markets. It was done at the tactical thing. Marketing was brought in right at the end, whack some messaging on it, and then everything will be right. There was no strategic consideration of how to change these things. Now, understanding of how hard it is. And if you want to draw a parallel, look at the amount of work that's going on into supply chain and procurement to make sure that all those chains are sustainable across the whole of Scope 3. Huge amounts of work. We talk to procurement people all the while, and the volume of work, the hoops that are being asked to jump through. There's nowhere near that amount of transformation gone on in the marketing community to actually bring it on board. The results of that, we're not innovating the core propositions of what companies do. We're basically doing add-ons and messaging additions. We're not bringing any genuine insight into how we actually change behaviours towards a sustainable future. We have no shared KPIs and objectives, which means we end up in these bizarre tug of wars. I've just completed an audit of the sustainable marketing in the automotive industry. And there's one brilliant example in Skoda's report that says we didn't hit our Scope 2022, our carbon targets for 2022. And there's a little caveat and a little asterisk. And if you follow it down, there's a little note that I'm convinced has come from the sustainability lead that's in this like apologetic, I'm really trying hard here. It says, we launched a coupe. And to me, that just really highlighted all this work in sustainability here. And then the marketing function's launching a coupe over here. And you end up in that tug of war that is not helping us move towards a sustainable future. So where do we end up with all that? We end up on the same slide, obviously. Thank you. We end up in a situation where, because we marketed sustainability rather than adopting sustainable marketing, we marketed sustainability, we assume that marketing is just comms, and it all failed to work, and it's all got just too hard. Back up to you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, there we go. Well, as Paul would say from Stagecoach, or what he says quite a lot at Stagecoaches, let's start from the top again. Let's rethink the entirety. Let's forget about all this greenwashing we've done. Let's actually go back to basics about where marketing can really come to the table, because it is the most effective communication engine out there, and it has got the most amazing behaviour-changing capabilities. It just needs the right remit and focus to drive it in the right direction. So here are sort of four main areas. These are the four big areas that it can drive change. Now, at the moment, we're sitting in number 4. We're not going to go into that. This is all the legislation that's come in to try and keep it on the right track, all these greenwashing legislations and everything else. It is absolutely important that compliance is there, but at the moment, all it's doing is actually driving green hushing, as Paul said earlier, which is no use to anyone. So yes, it is there, but actually, if we really want to think proactively, we need to think about the first three. And it all needs to be underpinned by the fact that everyone needs to become educated. Like, this is just going to be such a crucial element of this transition. So if we were to do about mapping operational impacts, there is some movement here, predominantly around carbon at the moment, where people are starting to kind of understand carbon footprints of advertising campaigns and bits and pieces. But actually, as Paul said earlier, when you look at those, the GHG protocol of the three scopes, where are marketing's actual operational impacts across everything? Not just carbon, and I know that this is about carbon, this conference, but actually, where does all of its impacts sit when it is operating on a day-to-day basis? Then there's the more proactive approach. How can we actually bring marketing to the table so it doesn't just use its communication element of its remit and actually starts using the full bandwidth of what it can actually do, but point it in the right direction, which, if done correctly, could drive proper competitiveness. And then the final one is really behaviour change. That is going to be the biggest one. That's the area that marketing can do so much to help, but is doing nothing at the moment.
It's like a game, isn't it? Yeah. Cool. So we're going to go through quite quick because we started a little bit late. As I said, don't underestimate what those operational footprints might be. I won't go into the detail of this, but to pull out a couple of figures. We're all at an event today. The carbon footprint of the global event industry is equivalent to that of the entire United States of America. Just let that sink in for a minute. And if you're an organisation with a big congress and an exhibition programme, that's significant. The online media world, where you're doing your advertising online, the carbon footprint of that industry is bigger than the entire aviation industry. Now, some companies are spending billions a year in those online worlds. So actually getting alert to that, mapping that, finding that in your organisation, and you'll find it scattered around, depending on what type of organisation you are. You might find it upstream, you might find it downstream. If you're using agencies to go out to put retailers into stores and things of that sort of nature, it's going to be in your downstream scopes. You might even find it in your capital expenditure. If you're buying ad tech or martech infrastructure, or even buying an exhibition stand to ship around the world, that could be in your capital expenditures. Don't underestimate it. It's bigger than you think.
And then it's about rethink competitiveness. This is where we're currently sitting at the moment, as we've kind of gone into. We've got sustainability up there, focusing on all three scopes. And we've got marketing down here. Now, you've probably heard of the 4 Ps. They were invented in the 1960s. Highly effective. Their sole remit is to drive commercial growth. Like, that is what they were set up to do. They've done it unbelievably effectively. But even though we've even got the 4 Ps, we're not even using the full bandwidth of the 4 Ps to start with. We're literally talking about a small section of Scope 3 downstream in that space. We're not even thinking about the much wider remit. But really, as we said earlier, if we want to change marketing, we need to actually move away from the 4 Ps. We need to move away from, the sole driver being commercial growth, regardless of what environmental and societal impacts we're having. And we need to move towards a space where actually we put marketing's full sort of remit behind the entire scope, the scope 1, 2, and 3 engine. And part of that is actually changing marketing's entire role, moving it from the engine of growth to a real catalyst that drives change, positive change across environmental and societal pillars as well as commercial pillars. Now, I'll hand it over to Paul just to explain an example. He loves bringing this to life, to what this could look like, and then I will just explain the final bit afterwards.
Sure. So how many of you know On Footwear, the Swiss-based shoe company? Yeah. So traditional approach to actually a sustainable shoe, reduce the number of materials in it, make sure they're recycled materials, and therefore you've got a low-carbon shoe. They haven't done that. Well, they have done that approach. They've got a very low-carbon shoe, reduce the number of materials in it, they're all recycled materials, but you don't buy the shoe. You rent it. You have a subscription model to it. You get the shoe for 3 to 4 months. They then take it back. It goes back through the machine, completely woven back into it. It's cleaned up, woven back its original fibres, and gets shipped back out to you ad infinitum. So what you've got in there, embedded within that, is low carbon, but behaviour that supports it. But it's a different proposition that you're taking to the audience and you're taking to your user. It's not, I've got a shoe that's really good to run in, it's really comfortable, and it's really pretty to look at. it's actually a different proposition, but only through a broader proposition like that, an innovative proposition like that, do you start to get the behavioural changes we need.
So if you just pin down what the 4 main areas that you'd need to look at to start seeing this change, is first of all, you need to redefine success. You need to actually set your marketing team objectives that both sit across commercial, environmental and societal. So you need to start redefining what success looks like when marketing comes to the market. Sorry, excuse the pun. The next is actually rethinking value creation. You know, it's not just about selling a product and then we leave you there and everything else. It's like, what kind of value can you create? Not like the whole way from scope 3 upstream, the whole way down through the way that marketing operates. And I think rethinking that and thinking less about price and what that delivers, it's really thinking how many different types of value can we drive as we are looking to bring these products and services to the industry. And then the third one is really around moving away from thinking of customers and an end goal and things that we target. Like, how can we partner with them? That's where that rental model really comes in. It's not just me selling to you. You're probably going to feed back quite a lot how the trainers are, you know, how long have you used them, what have you used them for. That can help improve, you know, potentially data and feedback and everything along those lines. But it's not also just about customer partnerships. Like, what partnerships can you set up with civil society? What could you do with NGOs? Tesco have an amazing partnership with WWF, because WWF, Worldwide Fund, not the fighting one, was it the World Wrestling, whatever it said, anyway, how to reduce the overall impact of the everyday shopper's basket. And so they've actually worked with that. So ultimately, your customers benefit from it, but it's actually an NGO they brought on board, and it was the marketing team that really drove this to drive down that, you know, the negative impact. And then the final one is obviously governance. And as I said, like, it has to be there, it has to keep us on track, it has to keep driving us forward, but it's not the end goal.
Right, I'm very alert to time, so I'm going to do this super quick. The biggest opportunity for marketing to play a role in Scope 3 is in behaviour change. If the clicker will please work. This is where marketing has unparalleled skills. It's what we do. We're a $740 billion industry that drives behaviour. Imagine if we brought that to the sustainability world. 3 skills it brings to the equation that the sustainability community hasn't thought about before. Irrational humans, imperfect knowledge, and delighted customers. These are the reasons why marketing is so powerful in our capitalist model we have at the moment. We are not rational humans. When we see a doom and gloom news story, we will not change our behaviours. We need to bring proper research and insight into behaviours in order to be able to engender proper behaviours. We know already guilt and worthiness do not drive purchase. Actually, it's still price and it's still habit that gets in the way, which is all tied up in the issue of proximity to sustainability. Imperfect knowledge. We can use our communications to communicate the right things about our products. Yes, in a world of misinformation and greenwashing, we've made that a quagmire already. But actually, a $740 billion industry at the moment presenting a brain print of unsustainable behaviours. When we launch our little sustainable widget in the middle of that, it gets lost in the wash. If we can turn that brain print into a massively positive thing, then we can really get motoring. And the last thing is, don't forget we're all selfish buggers. I'm sorry. But what we've done with those sustainable products so far is, here's my normal product, which I'm selling to you on all the features you love personally, then I've bolted on a bit of altruism to make you feel worthy. And it didn't work. We've got to make these propositions still delight the customer, which is what the on thing actually still does going forward. So we've got to wrap up. I'm very, very sorry. I'm going to jump past this. We wanted to kind of bring back our Elvis theme at the end, and we were going to have some music playing and get you all dancing, but that's never going to work. So we took a little bit less conversation and thought we'd change the words a little bit. So a little less brand fluff, a little more behaviour change, please. All this complicated stuff ain't satisfactioning me. A little more delight, a little less dark, doom, gloom, those sorts of things. I kept running out of ways to make all this rhyme. A little less greenwashing shite. That worked with fight. I was quite pleased with that. And then a little more innovation, please. I gave up right at the end. But I thought the general sentiment, we like Elvis and hoped he helped us on the way. And we're a little bit over, but I hope you felt that was a useful session.